The galaxy had long feared only one name, the Vroctal. From the scorched remains of the Garnet Enclave to the shattered megastructures orbiting Iralth Prime, their advance had been a brutal lesson written in blood. Their worlds were all death worlds, places so hostile that every living moment was a battle to survive. They had conquered because they were forged in an environment no sane species dared to colonize. To fight the Vroctal was to fight the inevitable. The Galactic Council, once arrogant in their reach, found themselves fractured and pleading. Their embassies once bloomed with offers of trade and diplomacy, now they flickered with desperate transmissions for salvation. The strongest fleets had been torn apart like chaff before a storm. Their most advanced weapons delayed the Vroctal advance by hours, not victories. It was then, as panic choked the stars, that the Council voted for an option many considered madness. They sent a message beyond the known lanes, to a fringe world categorized as highly hazardous, one flagged with warnings so severe that even slavers and pirates avoided it. Humanity. Their records were scarce, filled mostly with rumors. Primitive, warlike, cunning. Survivors from previous clandestine probes spoke of cities built atop the ruins of their ancestors, of weapons so crude yet devastating that the agents sent to assess them never returned whole, or never returned at all. The transmission was sent, a simple plea wrapped in veiled arrogance. Offer assistance. Show strength. Defend the Council. They did not expect an answer. But humanity responded. Not with pleas for treaties. Not with diplomatic envoys. They answered with coordinates and a single stark phrase. We accept. The first human vessels arrived days later. They were not the gleaming ships of a polished galactic navy, but blocky, brutalist constructs of steel and black plating. No ornamental displays. No welcome banners. Just the hum of engines that resonated like the growl of beasts unleashed. Council envoys assembled to greet the humans observed in nervous silence as the airlock opened and figures emerged. They wore armor designed for war, not diplomacy, plates dented and scarred from unseen battles. Their faces were obscured by expressionless helmets, cold blue visors hiding whatever thoughts lingered behind them. Their weapons, held low but ready, spoke louder than any greeting. The leading figure, taller than the rest, removed their helmet. A face scarred by age, conflict, and defiant pride looked upon the assembly. They did not bow. They did not offer peace offerings. They simply spoke, "Point us to the enemy." The Council, emboldened by desperation, agreed. They arranged a demonstration, a controlled battle between human forces and Vroctal scouts. The Vroctal, amused at the thought, dispatched a raiding party of seasoned warriors, each responsible for the deaths of hundreds across the stars. The battleground was chosen. A ruined industrial planet stripped bare of resources, its atmosphere thin, its surface a twisted landscape of broken steel and poisoned rivers. Perfect for testing the worth of the newcomers. The Vroctal arrived with a flourish, confident in their reputation. Muscles rippling under armor that barely contained their brute strength, teeth bared in sadistic grins, weapons clutched eagerly in clawed hands. They roared their challenge across the broken landscape. The humans answered with silence. They did not posture. They did not respond with chest-beating displays. They vanished into the ruins like ghosts. The Vroctal charged forward, howling battle cries meant to paralyze lesser species. They found only empty streets, silent windows, and the faint scrape of metal on stone. Then came the first explosion. A crude but effective trap rigged under a collapsed walkway, sending 3 Vroctal flying into the air, limbs severed. Sniper fire echoed next, distant and cold. One Vroctal, then another, fell with clean shots to the throat and head. Their thick hides offered no protection. Screams of rage filled the poisoned air. The Vroctal regrouped, forming defensive circles, but the humans did not attack directly. They bled them slowly, cutting supply lines, collapsing ceilings, forcing them into kill zones marked by burning wreckage. For every human sighted, a dozen Vroctal died. When the last of the Vroctal broke formation and fled into the ruins, the observers realized the terrible truth. The humans were not participating in a demonstration. They were executing a hunt. The council was speechless. Their own elite guards would have crumbled in minutes. Yet these humans, with inferior numbers and basic equipment, turned the deadliest warriors of the galaxy into prey. The aftermath was worse. Bodies of the Vroctal were hung from broken towers as warnings. Symbols painted in blood and soot, messages in languages older than galactic memory, spoke one universal truth: we do not fear you. Summons were sent. Council meetings reconvened behind locked doors, arguments rising in desperate tones. Humanity had proven itself too well. Whispers spread. Was the cure worse than the disease? Still, necessity overcame fear. The Council proposed a truce. Humanity would act as a vanguard force, disrupting Vroctal advances while Council fleets regroup. Humanity responded with terms. No negotiation. No half measures. The message was short: cooperation or clearance. The Vroctal, enraged by the loss of their scouts, responded with an official declaration: humanity would be annihilated before the next cycle. The first full engagement was arranged. A strategic outpost deep in contested space. A fortress of stone and steel, perched on the edge of a neutron star, its defenses deemed impenetrable. Humanity deployed. No fanfare. No grand speeches. They simply moved with terrifying efficiency, every step calculated, every action executed without hesitation. Council observers tracked the battle. Vroctal forces entrenched themselves, confident behind automated turrets, energy shields, and thick walls. They laughed as the humans approached in seemingly light formations. The laughter died quickly. Human engineers had mapped the magnetic fields of the neutron star, weaponizing the environment itself. Electromagnetic bursts shattered shield generators. Precision strikes crippled automated defenses. Small squads infiltrated through forgotten maintenance tunnels, emerging inside the fortress. The Vroctal fought back with ferocity, but humanity answered not with greater strength, but with ruthless tactics. Choke points flooded with incendiary foam. Corridors collapsed by targeted detonations. Vroctal warriors separated, isolated, hunted down with mechanical precision. By the time the Council's relief fleet arrived, the fortress was silent. Human banners, simple, stark, flew over the walls. The few Vroctal survivors lay bound and broken, their faces marked not by defiance, but terror. Reports flooded the galactic network. For the first time in recorded history, the Vroctal had been defeated decisively on fortified ground. Galactic media, once dismissive of humans as primitive, now struggled to find words. The new apex, some called them. The Deathworlders, others whispered. The Vroctal leadership, humiliated and enraged, doubled their forces for the next assault. Massed fleets of warships darkened the skies of a contested moon. They deployed not scouts but full legions. Humanity answered by splitting their forces, something the Vroctal considered suicidal. It was a feint. The Vroctal High Command issued the Blood Mandate, a decree unseen in 1,000 cycles. It demanded absolute mobilization. No quarter. No surrender. The annihilation of humanity was to be pursued with every ship, every soldier, every weapon at their disposal. They unleashed armadas that blotted out the stars, fleets forged in the crucible of their deadliest worlds. They swore blood oaths that none would retreat until Earth's last stone was ground to dust. Humanity observed without panic. They calculated trajectories, assessed weaknesses, charted probable responses. To them, the Blood Mandate was not a cause for fear but a revelation of their enemies' desperation. Human flotillas, fewer in number but sharpened by relentless necessity, mobilized in answer. No grand declarations, no chest-beating speeches. Their preparations were silent and thorough, guided by an instinct honed across centuries of warfare both internal and external. The first clash erupted over the gas giant Vrinthos 6. The Vroctal fleets surged forward, intent on overwhelming the thin human screen with brute force. The battle began not with direct engagement, but with disruption. Human saboteur teams, launched hours earlier in stealth pods, disabled key thrusters on enemy command ship. Ion mines detonated in carefully patterned fields, scattering fleet formations and shattering discipline. The Vroctal commanders bellowed for regrouping. They found their communications jammed, their visual targeting systems scrambled by drones weaving intricate webs of false signatures. Human strike craft, small and heavily armed, slipped through the chaos and crippled capital ships from beneath, severing reactors and drive cores with surgical strike. In less than 6 hours, half the Vroctal advance force lay adrift, burning slowly under the cold gaze of Vrinthos. 6. Humanity harvested every fragment of data, mapped every weakness exposed in the confrontation. They moved without pause to the next front. Council worlds watched in stunned silence. This was not the measured defense of an outnumbered force. This was strategic predation. Humanity did not merely survive, it dismantled. The Vroctal attempted to adapt. They deployed new tactics, scattered formations, randomized jump. Humanity anticipated every adjustment. They unleashed cyber assaults that corrupted Vroctal fleet AI, seeding distrust between captains. Entire battalions were tricked into firing upon their own allies, sowing chaos. On the scorched plains of Relgar III, ground battles raged. Vroctal heavy infantry, their armor layered in reactive plating, stomped through ruined cities hunting for human forces. They found only empty streets, laced with chemical traps designed to corrode their filtration systems. When they staggered, coughing and blind, humanity struck with kinetic weapons designed to shatter bone and armor alike. Vroctal supply lines, once considered unbreakable, withered under constant harassment. Human raiders appeared where no gates were believed to exist, striking convoys with chilling precision before fading into the black. Resource-starved Vroctal legions began to cannibalize their own dead for sustenance. Morale fractures appeared. The Vroctal were bred to dominate, not endure endless attrition. Their songs of blood grew muted, their war cries hollow. In response, the Vroctal unleashed their blackguards, elite units genetically engineered for resilience beyond reason. Titans clad in bioreactive armor, impervious to small arms fire, fueled by hatred engineered into their marrow. They were monsters even among monsters. Humanity responded not with larger weapons, but with subtler cruelty. Sonic disruptors tuned to frequencies that unhinged the blackguards' genetically enhanced pain threshold. Viral nanites that corroded their internal circulatory systems mid-combat. Psychological operations that projected false images of homeworlds burning, family units slaughtered. The blackguards fought on, but their minds fractured. They lashed out at allies, hallucinated enemies where none existed. What was designed as the Vroctal's ultimate weapon became a curse upon their own forces. Word spread across the galaxy faster than any war report. Humanity fought not only with strength but with intellect honed to a razor's edge. They fought to win, not to impress. They fought without mercy, without hesitation, without the need for validation. Entire Vroctal sectors collapsed under pressure. Planets once considered fortresses fell with barely a whisper. On Kraith Prime, a world defended by 4 planetary shields and countless divisions, humanity bypassed the surface entirely. They infected the orbital control arrays with recursive malware that turned the planet's own defenses inward. When the shields collapsed, there was no invasion force, only the silent drift of human ships gathering prisoners and data. Vroctal cultural centers burned. War academies once revered for centuries of tradition lay abandoned. Heroes of ancient campaigns were discredited, their statues toppled by their own disillusioned kin. Humanity did not pause to savor their victories. Each conquered site became a springboard for the next operation. They left behind minimal occupation forces, relying instead on implanted subversion. Propaganda loops, seeded rebellions, shattered supply chains. In desperation, the Vroctal turned to their ancient weapon, the Sunbreakers, ships designed to destabilize stars themselves. They planned to ignite supernovae in systems humanity now operated from, hoping mutual destruction would halt the advance. The plan never launched. Human intelligence teams, operating deep within Vroctal command structures, preemptively sabotaged the Sunbreakers. Core detonations ripped through Vroctal starbases before the devices could be deployed, taking entire sectors offline. Council worlds, once hesitant to fully align with humanity, began frantic negotiations for alliances. Some offered entire treasure fleets for mutual defense treaties. Others simply capitulated, granting unrestricted access to ports and resources without even waiting for human acceptance. Humanity accepted selectively, choosing partnerships based on utility rather than tradition. They made no promises of eternal loyalty. They made no pretenses of civilization's moral high ground. They accepted what was necessary, discarded what was not. The Vroctal Supreme War Council convened a final assembly on Velgrath, the molten heart of their empire. In a chamber carved from volcanic stone, they debated the future. Pride demanded continued war. Survival whispered of retreat. Before they could decide, humanity struck. A surgical operation, composed of less than 100 operatives, infiltrated Velgrath's defenses. They bypassed retinal scanners, genetic locks, even neural verification code. They unleashed chaos within the council itself, turning generals against each other with false transmissions and planted evidence. When the first plasma bolts flew, humanity withdrew, leaving the leadership in ruins. Within days, fragmentary Vroctal factions emerged, each claiming to be the rightful inheritor of the Blood Mandate. They turned their remaining fleets upon each other in a maelstrom of betrayal and fratricide. Humanity accelerated the collapse. Targeted strikes eliminated critical leadership figures. Supply depots exploded under unknown sabotage. Prisoners were quietly freed and armed, told nothing but the simple truth: freedom through fire. Humanity's fleets evolved beyond recognition. No longer mere military vessels, they became autonomous city ships, capable of self-sustaining production, defense, and colonization. They traveled in squadrons only when necessary, preferring solitary movement to minimize predictable patterns. Each ship represented not just force projection, but the will to endure under any circumstances. The question was no longer whether humanity would dominate. The question became how they would choose to shape the future. Human policy remained maddeningly opaque. They established protectorates over devastated worlds, offering security without demanding fealty. They dismantled slave empires without taking spoils. They intervened against genocidal wars with surgical precision, neutralizing perpetrators and then vanishing without occupying the victims. They enforced, through action alone, a new galactic law: survival was not enough. Strength without honor would be crushed. Predation without purpose would be eradicated. Some accused humanity of hypocrisy, citing the ruthlessness with which they destroyed the Vroctal. Humanity did not answer. They owed no explanations. On the ashes of former empires, new civilizations began to rise. Humanity fostered them indirectly, ensuring that none could again monopolize power through brutality alone. They seeded opportunity, not dependency. They offered knowledge, not oversight. They provided the tools for resilience, expecting nothing in return beyond respect. In the shadows, old powers plotted vengeance. Ancient beings, some predating humanity's first emergence from their cradle world, conspired to retake control. They built vast armadas in secret. They recruited mercenary legions. They designed plagues engineered to target human genetic markers. Humanity allowed them to gather strength, observing silently. When the enemy revealed itself, striking at human outposts simultaneously across dozens of systems, humanity responded not with anger, but inevitability. Counterstrikes unfolded with mathematical precision. Saboteurs disabled enemy ships before they reached their target. Quantum interference fields shredded communication networks, isolating fleets from command. Special operations teams, inserted years earlier under deep cover, activated sleeper protocols that dismantled internal security from within. By the time the enemy realized their mistake, their forces were already fragmented, their leadership dead or compromised. Humanity did not gloat. They simply erased the threat and continued forward. Fear became a constant undercurrent in the galactic zeitgeist. Not fear of cruelty or conquest, but fear of irrelevance. Fear of being left behind by a species that had proven themselves beyond survival, beyond victory, beyond even vengeance. New forms of governance emerged, modeled after human efficiency. Bureaucracies streamlined. Legal systems prioritized outcomes over procedure. Militaries adopted decentralized command structures, emphasizing initiative and adaptability. Religions evolved. Some venerated humanity as divinely ordained guardians of civilization. Others demonized them as harbingers of inevitable decline. Humanity ignored both extremes. They continued to explore beyond mapped space, establishing research stations in systems with no known value, investing decades into projects with no immediate return. They planned not for the next election cycle, not for the next treaty, but for the next millennium. Children on countless worlds learned human languages alongside their native tongues. Pilots trained on human simulators. Doctors adapted human emergency triage technique. Architects designed buildings to withstand the kind of disasters only humans seemed prepared to survive. The galaxy did not become human. It became shaped by humanity's shadow, molded by their relentless will, inspired by their refusal to compromise existence itself. Among themselves, humanity remained largely unchanged. They bickered. They argued over policy. They suffered internal schisms, ideological conflicts, generational shift. But none of these disputes weakened their external resolve. They had learned long ago that internal conflict, properly managed, was a source of strength, not division. An expedition fleet reached the edge of the Perseus Expanse, a region thought impassable. They found evidence of civilizations even older than the Council itself. Dead ruins swallowed by black holes, shattered worlds scorched by forces beyond comprehension. Humanity documented, analyzed, and prepared accordingly. They did not fear what lay beyond the known. They understood instinctively that the true threats were not those visible and immediate, but those ancient and patient. Preparations began for contingencies no other species dared contemplate. Planetary relocation protocols, interdimensional stabilization fields, thought weapon countermeasures. Humanity prepared not just to endure galactic threats but existential ones. They were no longer merely participants in the galactic arena. They had become custodians, defenders not of any ideology but of survival itself. And yet they did not seek to rule. They did not crown themselves emperors or demand tribute. They simply acted, and the galaxy aligned around their actions because there was no alternative. Worlds that once dreamed of conquest dreamed now of acceptance. Systems that once measured power by fleets now measured it by resilience, by adaptability, by the ability to survive upheaval without collapse. Humanity's lesson was not one of domination, but of inevitability. The strong survived. The adaptable thrived. The merciless perished not from external attack, but from their own rigidity. In the end, no declarations were necessary. No final battles were fought. Humanity's victory was not an event but a condition, a permanent reality woven into the fabric of galactic civilization. A silent understanding spread among all sentient beings. If you wish to endure, you must learn from humanity. If you wish to prosper, you must not challenge them blindly. If you wish to survive the next cataclysm, you must hope they still care enough to act. And far beyond the reach of any known empire, in the cold darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred. Something that had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. Something that had devoured worlds, snuffed out stars, shattered entire dimensions. It turned its attention toward the newly stabilized galaxy, sensing the shift in equilibrium. But where it had once found weakness and division, it found resilience. It found a presence standing watch in the void. It found humanity. No warnings were sent. No ultimatums issued. Humanity simply adjusted its trajectories, reconfigured its defenses, refined its strategies. They did not hope for mercy. They did not fear annihilation. They prepared. Because they had already learned the ultimate lesson, one the galaxy now understood as well. When the strongest Deathworld species rises, nothing less than the end of the universe itself can stop them. And even then, they would find a way to endure.